love strategy. It's no surprise I would have thought to anybody that's worked with me that I would find myself working in this position. It's always been with me ever since I was a kid. I used to deliver newspapers at the age of 9 because I wanted to save up and buy a bike. And I want you to imagine a 9-year-old, 10-year-old on a bike riding along with 2 bags full of Messenger newspapers on each side and on my back, throwing them every week so I could save my bike. Now, I was saving for a bike and I used to have in my diary how much I was saving and this is how many newspapers I'd have to deliver, and this is how much money I was making, and I had a little variance report going, age of 10. This is the stuff that I love. It comes innately to me and I really enjoy it. And so, you know, I think that having a good set of objectives and strategies for reaching it are just critical for anything we're going to do in life. I want to talk a little bit about the history of strategy. Strategy as a discipline in business has been going for about 50 years. It is, or more, probably 60, since the 50s. Because for the first time, private organisations really became the biggest influencers in society. And this sort of really happened around the time of GMH. GMH, not quite the car company that it is today, was pretty successful back then. And was making loads and loads of cash, and they had all this money and they needed to do something with it. So they went and invested all of their money in fairly unrelated portfolios of businesses at the time, and that was seen as being their best method for redistributing the cash. Strategy development came out of that in terms of portfolio analysis, which was looking at understanding the portfolio of the businesses and what they were doing with it and what they should do with it and how they should prioritise it. From there, they started to go down a level and they started to look at the business economics of each business at a more micro level, and that sort of came out through the 1960s and the 70s, and then strategy firms such as Bain & Co and BCG set up to service those organisations exactly. In the 80s, a much more intuitive, iterative approach came out, and that was through the rise very much of the Japanese companies, the Hondas, Sonys and Toyota. It's through that organisational consultants, and one in particular, Mintz Herzberg, really got in touch with the values and purposes and principles of business that we're sort of familiar of today. In the 90s, that got very, very much influenced and popularised through books like Good to Great, Jim Collins, which many of you would probably have read, a very popular book. What has, I think, been distilled in that over the last 10 years is a real combining all of those different sort of initiatives of strategy development in terms of discipline, and moved it to a more rigorous model that can actually be applied for business, that takes into account the intuitive, the reflective, but also puts some facts around it. The model I like to use is shifting it from gut feeling to gut fact. I think that's really important, because in strategy, we really are sort of thinking a line in the sand, we're going to throw a dart on the board and we're going to choose somewhere to focus. And then we're going to go away and gather some data and sort of do a progressive approximation to see whether our hypothesis was correct. And that's very much how it works. The purists would have you say, we start with the market and we work back, which is there must be a market for our product, service, our speaking, and then we work back. In truth, I don't think it really happens that way. I think that we have skills and attributes that we're naturally good at, and then we work toward that and understand where the market fits. We're looking to intersect, ultimately, that point of passion and purpose that we have for ourselves and where the market's prepared to pay for something. And that's the ultimate intersection of value that we're trying to get to. My approach comes from a concept, and I'm just going to ask you if you can start handing around those 2 sheets of paper there. That would be great. Thank you, Chris. I'm just about to do a quick handout which will start to explain and extrapolate how we go through this process of developing a strategy. My approach is very much steeped in Six Sigma. I started working in Six Sigma. Has anybody heard of Six Sigma before as a discipline, process discipline? Six Sigma is a process discipline for problem solving. came out of the quality movements in the 1980s and was popularised very much by Motorola and then GE. Six Sigma, without going into all the detail of it here tonight, which is not important, other than to understand that there's a 5-step process for developing, for processing problems. And I have combined that with the strategy methodologies and tools and concepts that I spoke of earlier to come up with a system that allows us to approach our strategy development problems for our business.